Have you ever just wanted to kind of look behind the curtain and figure out the secrets of doing exceptionally well in this business? If so, then you've come to the right place. This podcast, Realtor 180, has always been about demystifying and figuring out those things to turn your business completely around immediately. Today, I have the honor of sitting down again for a second time with Debbi DiMaggio, and we talk about how to approach our sellers with a little bit different of a conversation, how to approach open houses, and what are the details it takes to sell a home fast in any market. As always, I'm your host and referral partner out of San Francisco, Shawn Kunkler. Debbi, we are live. Welcome back. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much. So excited to be back.
I'm excited. I really appreciate you, and I love that you're basically in the backyard of San Francisco. And so our businesses are collaborative, but we're in completely different markets and we're seeing totally different stuff. So I think this will just be a really fun catch up and kind of learning for both sides of what's happening on the other side of the bridge. So when we're actually sitting down to record this versus when it's dropping, there's going to be a little lag. So if people are listening and there's some things that seem like they're time sensitive, that is why. But kind of, let's talk about the market. All right. We've seen a very significant shift. Well, in the past 4 years, we've seen some really radical things happen. If an agent's been in the business that long, you've seen incredibly low interest rates. You've seen incredible high interest rates as compared. But we did see a very, very fast increase in those rates. And then we've seen prices change significantly, inventory change significantly. So I want to basically dive in at the point of, what are you seeing agents doing to maintain their level of success right now?
Yes. So today, for sake of argument, we are in, where are we? We're in July. And so right now, I mean, whether it's a buyer, we seem to always, we've been lucky enough to be in a seller's market a lot of the time. If you're a listing agent, if you're a buyer's agent, that's not so fun, right? Because if you're working with a buyer, we do a lot of listings, but when you work with a buyer, that means only one winner in 5 or 10 offers, right? So if you're a buyer's agent, it's not so great. But let's talk about for a minute the listing side, the selling as a listing agent. So we've had markets. 2009 wasn't great, right? We've had ups and downs. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that rates have gone high quickly. And remember, they were super low. It was like funny money, yeah. Right? It was like Wall Street. They were making so much money at one time, and our rates went so low, so people just thought that was normal. So now rates are high, about a year. God, it's almost been probably a year that rates started climbing. There was a little adjustment. People had to adjust to that, but I do think buyers, if a home is prepared properly, it doesn't matter the rate, they're going to come in. And if they listen to their agent and their lender, they could get a short-term loan and then refi when rates come down. So let's talk about that for 1 second. It's the smart buyers that buy during this harder time with rates higher because you have less competition, right? So if you have less competition and prices have probably come down, at least in the East Bay, they've come down because rates are higher. So you're going to get a better deal, and then you can refi later. But right, if you're representing a buyer, it's so amazing if you could have less competition, fewer buyers, you're going to get a better deal.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I mean, you just have to. There's just a level of being nimble to it all, and to your point earlier, if a property shows really well, if the seller trusts you enough to take the guidance and do all the prep, it'll sell. But it always, 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 always comes down to price. Everything will sell for the right price. And it's whatever the buyer is willing to pay is the price. And sometimes that delta between the buyer's expectation to the seller's, that's usually the hard conversation.
So you're in San Francisco and I'm in the East Bay. Even though we're 20 minutes apart, our markets are very different. And I'm excited to hear what's the best time for a seller to sell in San Francisco. But for us in the East Bay, January is a good time, February, March, strongest time for a seller to sell because we've had pent up demand. People aren't really looking at houses at Thanksgiving. Then you're into the holidays and the parties and Christmas and New Year. So come January, it used to be prior to 2009. It used to be after Martin Luther King or after the Super Bowl. That's out the window. Now it is, you come out that second week in January, there are buyers with pent up demand. So January, February, March, super strong. April, pretty good, but then you've got tax season, so you get people kind of sidetracked. Then come May, it used to be June, but now May is a very slow month for us in the East Bay. There's high school graduations, college graduations, preschool, middle school. I mean, there's a graduation for every age. So not only do we have graduations in May, they've come earlier than they used to be in June. Then we have Father's Day comes up in June, Mother's Day, Memorial Weekend. We have the beta breakers that took people away. We have nice weather. So all of a sudden, and then especially since COVID, people are traveling like crazy. I went to the airport in the early June, and it was crazy the amount of travelers. And we're supposed to be not in a good economic times, and people are traveling. So when people are traveling, they're not looking at homes. So so with that said, so then we go into summer. Let's go into summer really quickly. Hit and miss right now. Piedmont, Oakland, dead. People are whether they're in Tahoe or traveling wherever, pretty quiet. Yes, a home well prepared will sell, but it's pretty quiet. August school now starts earlier. And we're pretty much on a school cycle. So now school is going to be early August, so people will start to come back, but they will still kind of be summering. And then come September, we'll be back on track, but you kind of have to get your homes listed September, October. So then we lose people to the holidays. So again, we go back into January and comes out with a boom. So talking about 2 listings that we have right now, we put, due to when they decided to go to market, get a place to live, move, we got them fixed up in April. We came on the market in May. Comps in early April were here. When by the time we were able physically to get the houses on the market, it was May, and we were hit by holidays and graduations, interest rates. All of a sudden, I mean, our open houses were so quiet. I'd never seen anything like it. Just quiet, really cute houses, beautiful homes. There was nothing else we can do physically to make it any better. And we had to reduce the price, going back to your point, Shawn, when you said it's about price and it's about willing buyer and a seller coming down to meet the market. We had to come down to meet the market, number one. The second thing we did was this is the fun part. I hired a Feng Shui person who came in, and she came into 3 of the listings. 2 of the listings within the time frame of her Feng Shuiing. A couple days later, we had 2 offers on each of these two of the 3 homes, and we got them both into escrow within 7 days or less.
That's fascinating. So this is totally random, but years ago I ran a martial arts studio, a Kung Fu studio, which is a Chinese martial art. And the grandmaster of the school, the guy who ran the entire federation, was also a Feng Shui master. And so seasonally he would come in with the compass and the book, and we'd have to Feng Shui the whole place, which was the least favorite day because it would entail repainting and rearranging, and it would be literally an entire day of like putting a turtle in the corner and then him like going with a compass and having to turn it like 5 degrees, and then just like really just incredibly random things.
I love that.
But it's cool. I mean, it's amazing that it worked for you. And I'm definitely, you pray to the real estate gods sometimes when you have those properties or those deals that they're just challenging you on every level.
So I had a couple of agents calling me, and one had a couple different agents during the time called me. They had similar. One was one price, one was another, and the agents were calling. What's going on? Do you have traffic?
Mm.
How's how's it going? And then when they went pending, they called and they said, "What did you do?" And I told them, and I referred them over to my Feng Shui person, and so now I need to call to follow up to find out if their house sold.
That's amazing.
And the one thing I'm going to do today after this is, do you ever use the Saint Joseph, the Saint Joseph statue? The Saint Joseph, yeah. And you turn it upside down and facing. There's a little note that tells you directions how to do it. But after this, I'm going to go up to our listing on Park Ridge and I'm going to bury the Saint Joseph. Whatever it takes.
I haven't done the St. Joseph. I'm in the city, so a lot of the condos, there's no earth to dig into.
No, there is. There's for condos. There is a way. I'll Google it and
That's
send it to
amazing.
you. It's in the medicine cabinet, I think.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I'll send you the information.
So to kind of summarize when the best time to sell, historically speaking, and this is prior to 4 years ago, when things were the metrics were more consistent and there was a lot less variables. Historically speaking, it was late February and September. Those were the two best times to list. The best times to buy, because we are a mass transient city. Most of the people aren't from here. And so they tend to go home during the holidays. So from late November all the way until January, it's an amazing time to buy. A lot less competition. But historical patterns have changed so dramatically. The conversation I have currently in the current market with sellers is list. Right now, list. Because we're in a deficit of inventory. And there's buyers out there. We have in the city, we have a lot of pied-à-terre buyers who live in either South Bay, East Bay, or North Bay. The kids went off to college. They have a little extra income, and they now want that second place to park some cash and enjoy the city. And so I'm seeing, at least in my business, an uptick of that specific profile of buyer. And so with that, they're out there. And so I think with, the past 4 years, if they've taught us nothing, that anything is possible. And so in my opinion, waiting for the next predictable factor to happen and listing then, there's no predictability to it. And so just list. And if the property, and that's the caveat with that is, does it look scroll stopping? When a buyer sees it online, will they actually pause long enough to go, oh wow, this looks interesting, and then they'll take the other massive leap, get into their car, go to the property, and see it in person. And if those photos, that's the first way they're going to experience your property. If they're not, pardon my French, holy shit, just absolutely amazing, you're dead in the water. And the other thing they're going to do is buyers are savvy and they have all the tech in their pocket. They're going to look at the other properties as how it compares. Most of the other feeds, Zillow, Redfin, will tell you the other listings. And so if you're not priced, if you don't look better and you're priced better, you're already dead in the water. You have to nail every spot. And newer agents listening, I think there's a huge misconception, and this is a tangent, but I think there's a huge misconception in the industry is we're negotiating the buyer's offer with the seller or the seller with the buyer. 99% of your negotiations are going to be with your own clients, helping them understand why it's important to stage, why it's important to paint, why it's important to go with this painter over that painter. Why is it important to do this? And you're constantly having negotiations, micro negotiations, as I call them, to help people understand why is right now a better time to list than banking on a crystal ball statement made by JP Morgan that the interest rates may do XYZ in 4 months.
Right.
Who knows?
Absolutely. No, I just had this conversation this morning with the seller, and he he wants to sell it fast. He wants to sell it as is. I get all that, but when you walk into the house and there's four children living in the house, adult children, and it's a mess, it doesn't matter. It's not. It's like you're negotiating with your own client,
Yeah.
right? It's like, and sometimes you're like, how do you not see that? Like, it has to present the way the other houses are presenting and better. You've got to empty it. You've got to paint it. You've got to stage it. Buyers are going to look online. If they see, or if they even walk in a house that's not pristine, they're going to discount it hugely,
Yeah.
whether or not. And in this case, the systems are great. He worked on the foundation. There's a brand new 60-year roof, the furnace and the water heater, everything, great location. It's got all the bells and whistles, but it's a mess. It's lived in, and it needs to be painted. It needs to be staged if you want, and these are the words I use, in order to maximize your investment. These are the things we need to do. But how often do we have to say this? And if you go online, you can see how homes are presented, and that's how they have to compete with the way those homes are. So yes, exactly. Our negotiation is very much trying to, I hate to say the word negotiation, but we're trying to get them to understand our market and how it works. It is negotiation, but we're trying to really get them to understand how we have to present a home in order to get them the biggest return and the best return on their investment.
Yeah, and I think that's actually a great reframe. Is this is always a very, very difficult conversation because people live in their homes and they have lots of memories in their homes and they love their homes, but reminding them it's an investment. And with some investments, like selling a car, if you bring it to the car wash and wax it, you're going to increase its perceived value rather than leaving it dirty and leaving all those wrappers and just the random things in the back seat, right? And
That's so true. Good example.
but getting them to acknowledge, oh, you're right, it's an investment. And on the flip side, building enough trust where they understand that your goal is to not put $1 in to get $1 out. It's how do we put $1 in and get 100 out? And
Right.
and how do we reposition it to outshine these other properties? And buyers are out there. They're out there. And so how do you get them to
They are
your
out there.
property? 100%.
And in 2000, even in 2009 and 8, 9, and 10, when the market wasn't good, if a home was prepared right, we were selling houses. We actually, it was quiet. People weren't going to restaurants. It was a bad time, but it wasn't so bad if you had been a seasoned agent and if you were bringing something to market or if you were working with a buyer and homes were prepared. I remember speaking to these clients, doctors who come and sold them at a really beautiful house in Berkeley. And, so for our area, we're in the East Bay, Piedmont, Oakland, Berkeley. So our area typically holds its value because we're still close to San Francisco, Oakland Airport. We're in, Marin. We're in this nice little hub that's close to everything. Yes, the homes in Fairfield and Davis and further out where people have to commute into city centers, those houses, yes, they were foreclosed on and there was a lot, horrible things happening out there. But our homes still hold value. And I'm sure the people who bought during that time got a pretty decent deal. And now those homes are so much more. I also had a client and a friend and real estate person during the downturn. She bought a ton of property in East Oakland and they're all in short sales, and she ended up doing so well because she took the risk during that time, bought up these distressed properties and owned a ton of real estate. She was actually from Asia and she was very savvy. I wouldn't have been in my DNA to do that, but I was just amazed how she took advantage of that and did well.
That's very Warren Buffett right there. Sell when everybody's buying and buy when everybody's selling. It's like
Absolutely.
when the money's hard to get, it puts downward pressure on the price. And so you're getting better. You're going to get a better deal right now. And if it's got some flaws, a little hair on it, buy it, do those capital improvements, rent it out, sit on it, and then wait. And we all know you any property that you could have bought 10, 20, 30 years ago, it's worth more. And
Right.
90%
Absolutely.
of the market, 90 plus percent of the market's out there. And sometimes helping buyers understand that and kind of showing them like, here's the national trend line of houses over the past 50 years. It's just up and to the right, like period. There's a couple blips, as is the stock market and every other market, but in general, it's up. And so, yeah, I mean,
Right.
if you kind of then look at San Francisco or cities, and this is similar. I've talked to agents in Miami and New York and LA, similar patterns where in the city we have a very limited amount of single family homes versus condos. So with that, single family homes are more desirable. They're more insulated than the condos. With condos, we are seeing the ones that tend to sit, in spite of them being prepped. Of course, pricing comes down to it, but it's buyers want the base things, plus they want three more things. They want parking, they want in-unit laundry, and they want an outdoor space. And if it's missing one of those,
Yeah.
they'll snub it. And that's trickier. It takes more marketing, it takes more creativity to get
Yeah.
the views and get it out there. But there's, again, if you price something attractive enough, people overlook flaws. And in my general rule in the
Exactly.
city, and actually you can tell me if you see this in Piedmont, but our general rule is if you have buyers coming in and they're not requesting disclosure packets, you're usually about 10% overpriced. If they're coming in
Oh,
and they're requesting disclosure packets, but they're not writing offers, you're usually 5% overpriced, roughly.
oh, neat. I never thought of it that way. But that's, yeah, I mean, obviously that's probably pretty accurate. Because I always, we can tell. So similar what I say to a seller, let's say, if we're not getting activity or people aren't pulling disclosures, then obviously it's not right. There's something
Something.
missing. And so here's something that happened. I go into this darling house and I think it's the cutest storybook house ever. We get it painted and staged and it's looking really great. It's actually in the lower part of Montclair. So you can walk to Lake Temescal. You can walk. I mean, we don't, in the Oakland Hills, typically you can't walk anywhere, but we can walk from this house. So everything's great. And I'm just racking my brain. And the pricing was when we priced it again in March for coming on the market end of April, May, we were caught right there as the market was coming down. And so here's one of our things you were saying with your market, no parking, that's, ding, no outdoor space, ding. So for our market, because typically people are buying coming from San Francisco to the East Bay to buy, they're starting a family usually, and that means kids are coming along. So this darling house had two bedrooms up, and this has gone on for the 35 years I've been selling real estate. If a house has two bedrooms up and two down, or if they don't have three bedrooms, they can, could have one, they can have all three upstairs is great. They usually want three bedrooms on one level.
Mm-hmm.
So they typically have two children and they don't want one of the children downstairs. So for our client's family, it was perfect. They had one child. So the parents and the children were upstairs. The child was upstairs. So that was one of the things. It was the layout.
Mm-hmm.
And that is across all price points. If they're a starter home, if they've been, if they're a higher end home, they typically want three bedrooms on one level. And of course, they do want parking, garage access.
Yeah.
And the other thing for us is they prefer to have the level out from the kitchen to the backyard.
Yep.
And in the East Bay, our homes are very traditional. When I say the East Bay, I say Piedmont, Oakland, Berkeley, let's say. Our homes are very traditional from the 20s, so there's not all houses are kitchen to backyard. They can be very formal. But in Contra Costa, Rinda, Lafayette, Danville, those homes are newer and were built in a different times. So they do have kitchen great rooms, family rooms that do go out to a backyard. So just different little nuances in our areas.
And that's where from an agent's perspective, I think it's just incredibly important. You got to go see inventory, and you have to just see a lot of stuff. You have to, it's like wine. You don't really know a good bottle of wine until you've tasted a bunch of different things. You've given yourself
Exactly.
enough data points to figure these things out. One of the things that I do as an activity with my team is as soon as we get a listing, we'll literally stand there in the property and be like, okay, who's going to buy this? Who's the ideal buyer? And really at that point, like to your point, if there's two up, you kind of know it's going to be, they have one child. If there's stairs, maybe there's a lot of stairs. It's not going to work for a young child. It's going to work for an older child. And then, so you're kind of like working through this. Like you don't want to stage the room perfect for a 1-year-old when you have a more inkling it's going to be an 8 or 9 or a teenager who's going to get that second.
Right.
And you have to then back into your staging, and then who are the best stagers for this, and what colors do we pick? I think that most sellers don't realize, and it's really hard to articulate all those layers, all those pieces of the puzzle that we have to put all together and make fit perfectly for that one day that we get to debut it for the first time. Because we only get one chance at that. Like we can only come to market that one time for the first time. And so it's, how do you get all these pieces? That's actually my absolute favorite part of the job.
I know.
Is that
mine
one day.
too. I love that. Getting it all together. Or then I was a Mother's Day and I was sitting there at an open house and, finally sitting after getting it all ready and, painting and staging and light fixtures. And so it was Mother's Day and I'm sitting, and I had already walked through with the contractors on everything, light bulbs, this, that. So I'm sitting there at the open house on Mother's Day. I texted the painter. I'm like, I told you 4 times that light bulb needed to be replaced. I'm like, I'm sitting here at my open house on Mother's Day. I'm a mother. And I asked you so many times. I just like, and sellers don't know. They're long gone. They've moved on. We're kind of the custodian, I might say, of the home, and we notice everything. When we just take it over, we're fixing it and doing things, but we become the eyes and ears, and it's part of us. And we notice things and we move things, and we're like, oh. I went to the hardware store the other day and bought all new light bulbs. It was too dark. I wanted brighter bulbs. Went to the hardware store, came back, screwing them in. There's so many layers that people don't know. Clients don't know, and newer agents don't know. How
100%.
Could they know? You learn from experience, right? So just like you said, when you have your team come in and I know that the person who's going to buy X home, let's say, so the people, let's go back to the cute little charming house. So it wasn't someone with 2 children. It didn't work for them. It wasn't good for a couple with their mother-in-law to come live with them because of the stairs and the layout and the space. But it became, the people who bought it were a couple with no kids. So it's perfect for bedrooms, 2 up, 2 down. You can have your bedroom in one. 2 people can have offices. It was the right buyer. But it's so hard, as you know. You want your client to sell their home. You want them to move to the next chapter. And you go through these things, but they don't really hear. All they hear or see is they're on Zillow. That home just sold.
I know.
They don't even register that that's a different home, or that home had a view, or that home had a way bigger kitchen. It's like that home was in my price point and mine didn't sell. And we have to go through again all the different things and the reasons why, and how we need the right buyer for your home, which we ended up getting 2 people who wanted it. But we have to patiently go through all that, and without experience, you're not going to have that gift to be able to articulate all that.
I mean, I completely agree. It's funny. My team knows I'm a stickler with lighting, and it drives me, it drives me insane when you have, like, the bedside lights are different temperature than the overhead light. It's like because buyers won't know how to articulate that. They'll just feel, oh, this room's off. And it has nothing to do with the
Yeah.
room. It's the temperature of the bulb. And they'll just, the back room feels dark. And you're like, oh, it's not. It's just this stupid bulb. And so, yeah, I'm incredibly my stage. I have a couple of go-to stagers, and they know I'm a stickler for bulbs.
Yeah.
Because
And lampshades. It's like that lampshade has to be a good quality. I understand
yeah,
that the lampshades, when they're being staged from one house and traveling to the next house, it's just like when I see a lampshade that's too bright white or it's a little
yeah.
dented or it's miscolored, I'm like, ah.
Even the little stuff of the seam of the lampshade, turn it
Yes.
so it's facing the wall. Like if there's toilet paper, like make it fold into a triangle so it looks like a hotel. Drop in a little bleach thing in
Yes.
the toilet so you don't get stains when the buyer lifts up the lid. Like it's just, I feel like
Yeah.
it's all these little details that buyers won't know how to articulate. They'll just pass. And you only have, unfortunately, that.
And they don't even know why they
Yeah,
passed. And they
it's
don't
just
even know why they passed.
and it'll be it's something they can't articulate. I just didn't feel right. Like how I just
Yeah.
it like you hear it. Oh, the energy's off. Like that's a completely non-tangible thing. Something made him feel awry, and it was like, what is that? And how do you correct it? In my opinion, is it's these little details, or having soft music play when they walk in, having food and drinks available so they linger a little bit longer in the room. Like those are all
Right.
little, really subtle things that you can do. And I also think too, my 2 cents is, I think it's really important for the agent or the agents involved, like if it's a team who were involved in the process, because they gain a new appreciation, a new perspective, and they know how to point out, oh, if you actually stand in this room and you look out that window, you get this amazing view experience, whatever it may be. But you don't get that if you're popping in to host an open house one time for the agent on the
Right.
weekend. Like you lose something in your ability to convey that.
Yeah, and that's a good point. So we have 80 agents that work with our company in the Oakland Piedmont area, and this one agent, I'll point out her because she's so good. If she take well, actually, two agents do this. They usually will try to do if they're going to take your open house, they want to do it both Saturday and Sunday because someone might be in that come Saturday but want to revisit Sunday. So I think that's brilliant. And the other thing is one of them brings cupcakes. She's called the Cupcake Lady. So she's kind of known as the Cupcake Lady, and she puts
I love
balloons
that.
and she's just adorable and vibrant. So it really works with her. And she goes to the house ahead of time. Most agents, I'd say 99.9 do not go to the house ahead of time. She goes to the house ahead of time. She looks at it. She makes sure she could get in or he can get in and knows what they're going to be showing. They read the disclosures ahead of time. They are prepared. And the new agent he's just really gung ho and he holds those open houses. He probably held open one of our open houses probably 20 times and in the changing market, and he ended up getting a buyer and selling the property.
I love
So
that.
I commend him for, he's like, Debbie, if I get to put my signs out, it's free advertising.
Mhm.
It's fine. One person comes by. It happened to be at this time, it was the right one person. And he sold the house. And,
Love it.
2 to 4:30 on a Saturday and Sunday is not that much time to invest when, people have jobs where they're spending hours in one place all day in and day out. It's like a Saturday and Sunday. It's a beautiful house with a beautiful view. It's like it's not that much time.
Agreed.
And to sell a house yeah, it was really amazing. And for me, I'll always want to call on him or her. The other one as well is I want those types of people presenting my properties. If I'm giving them an opportunity to potentially meet a client, I want them to present it in its best light for me and for them. So yeah, it's really important, like you said, to bring your team by and for them to
Yeah,
understand.
and I want to actually go back and put a huge spotlight on what you just shared, because there's a huge nugget in there for people if they missed it. Out of 80 agents, 80 people, you only mentioned two because they outshine the other 78. Not to say the other 78 are amazing. These two are just doing something a little bit more. And that's, if you're new in the business and you're trying to cut your teeth, building a relationship with someone like you who's a heavy hitter, does a ton of business, has been in the game for a long time, you want to get on their short list of the people they call. And I think the other really important thing is, which that agent did, is when I was looking for opportunities to host, I'd be like, hey, I'm happy to host this weekend. I'll come by on Tuesday. I would love to get a tour, really get familiar with the property from the agent themselves, because they'll share verbally a lot more than they'll ever text or email. And then ask them, hey, would you mind just earmarking me to host all your open houses from now until it sells? Because I've personally found every one that you do, you actually get better selling the property. And you get better and better.
That's true.
And then that opportunity, when that actual buyer, that right buyer comes in, you're so tuned into this property because you've answered at that point every single question. And you've picked up all the details from the buyers, like, oh, the best places in the neighborhood or what they love most about it. And you can now sell it and position it in a way that it gets them to be like, oh my God, this is an amazing place. I have to have it. And you only get that with the time. And so I really hope people get that piece of, don't do the minimum of
that's super true.
what's expected. Go beyond that and be known for cupcakes or balloons, whatever it is, but be known for something within the agent community. And you're going to you'll get calls. Like you'll have like people like you who constantly have listings and you can only be at one place at one time. You're going to have people you can rely on who are amazing that you could fully trust with your seller's property. And so it might as well be them. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. No. And it's so true. Just what you were saying about, I love that you would say that, can I hold it open now for the duration? Because as you and I know, as listing agents, when we take over that property, we see it in the lived-in state. Then we start to, we connect with it as we're transforming it. So
Correct.
now we are completely connected to that house, and the only way to do that is to have spent time and knowledge and understanding and questions. And so now now the agent comes in to represent it at an open house. Just for 2.5 hours, you're not going to really connect or bond with that house. You might like it, but so if you continue to connect, exactly. It's kind of like a child. You continue to connect and go, or a pet, closer and closer and closer. So that's just a whole other way of looking at it, which, I think is really amazing, but it's so true.
It really, I've noticed it with myself, is you start to really connect with it on a different level, and you can share things about the home from a different, deeper perspective. The other amazing thing I've had happen too is, again, those agents are incredibly busy. And I've had them say, hey, a buyer actually pinged me. I'm not available to show it. They're not represented. Do you mind hosting it? And if you can convert them as your buyer, go for it. Like I don't know how to lean on it any more than if you just do really good work within the community, you'll get recognized and opportunities will tee themselves up for you. But you just got to show up.
Absolutely.
You got to show up. You got to do the work.
Yeah. You've got to show up. Yeah. Because if you're just one of the other agents floating around a million of us, right, you're not going to be noticed. But if you're the one raising your hand, responding to the email, yes, I'll do that for you. Sure, I'll hold the open house, or calling and say, if you have an open house that's free, can I please do it? How many times have we given an agent, handed a client over and said, I don't want to double end it. Would you like this? Do you think I did that gave a deal to someone who never shows up? Absolutely not.
Yeah. And it's usually 9 times out of 10, if you think about it, let's say the property was a little stale. It's been on for 3 weeks. The same agents hosted it 6 times. and a buyer comes in and says, "Hey, I want you to represent me," and you say, "I'm representing the seller, but I'm happy to introduce you to a colleague," who do you think that person's going to call? Like, you are so teed up at that point to write that offer, just virtue of being in front of that agent and do an amazingly good job. I think the power of the relationships in this industry is, I mean, it's like you and I sitting down right now and having this conversation. The reality is we're never going to compete. Like, the reality of you coming to San Francisco and doing a listing presentation to the same seller that I would, or me going to Piedmont, is there's pretty much a zero probability, because I don't sell in Piedmont. Like, I don't know it. And so I would rely on an expert, and I would call you. And you and I have chatted a ton of times. I know your ethics. I know your values. I know how you go above and beyond for your clients. It's not even a debate. It's just, it's somebody calls me and they're like, "Hey, we're thinking about buying or selling a place in Piedmont." Okay, let me call Debbi. Like, that's how this business works.